Hey everyone, welcome back to the Worldview Minute. I'm Pastor Levi Secord. As we've been unpacking this Christian worldview and how it applies to Christianity, today's episode we're going to lay down the Christian foundations for science. What is it about the Christian faith, the Christian view of reality that made the scientific revolution not only possible but inevitable, and that still provides the undergirding for science to continue today? And I'll begin with this quote by Paul Davies. He writes this: "So science can proceed only if the scientist adopts an essential theological worldview. Scientists, even if they don't believe in God, have to begin with the same assumptions as Christians about reality." So, as we've been saying again and again, science requires certain things to be true about nature and humanity and knowledge in order for it to be possible and for it to flourish. Science cannot exist on its own foundation, as we saw with logical positivism and empiricism. Science can't provide its own foundation for knowledge because it contradicts itself. If you say knowledge only comes through the scientific method, you can't weigh, touch, feel, and empirically engage with science. Science itself doesn't exist. It's a contradictory statement. It is a faith statement, as it were. And so below are six teachings, that's right, six teachings that come from the Christian faith and worldview that are necessary for science. These are the six things that provide a foundation for science to function. The first is this: nature is real. And when I say nature is real, nature is also objective. When God created everything in Genesis chapter 1, he looked at everything. It exists outside of him, right? It exists outside of us as the subject. It's external to us, and he looks at it and he says, it is good. Well, the early stages of science arose in many ancient civilizations. Their rejection of the physical world stunted the growth of science. For example, Hinduism views the world as an illusion. If that is true, science is undesirable or not really possible. Today, with some atheistic or Darwinistic scientists, their convictions hold that while nature exists, we only know it through our mind's interpretation of it, that we construct our view of reality. If that is true, then our reality may be real, but our perception of it is not. And if that is true, then science is impossible. So Christianity begins with this: the God who created everything, that nature is a real external reality to the knower. And because it is real and objective, we can have science. Second, Christianity asserts that nature is good. For science to flourish, the study of the natural world, you have to believe that the natural world is worth studying. Everybody has some subject that they find rather uninteresting or we think is unimportant. Some people hate sports and like, that's a waste of time, I'm not going to study it. Some people find it valuable. It's the same thing with science. If you don't find nature valuable, you won't want to study it. Nature has to be worth studying, not something to be escaped. The Greeks, for example, did not hold such beliefs, as many of them believed nature to be evil and chaotic. In the movement known as Gnosticism, the physical world was something that they wanted to be liberated from, set free from. If that's what you think about the natural world, then you're not going to spend much time studying it. Christianity says, though, that God created the world very good. Yes, it is stained by sin, but it still maintains its valuable. Romans chapter 8, all of creation is groaning under the weight of sin and waiting to be liberated. Moreover, we read that the glory of God is revealed in his created order. So the early scientists who believed in God, and they started the scientific revolution, and as that began, part of their motivating factor was to know more about their good creator. Goodness of creation is tied to the goodness of its creator. Third, nature is not God. Christianity teaches that God created ex nihilo. And so nature is not a manifestation of God. It is not directly connected to God as it being one with him. It's not panentheism or pantheism, where God and the created order are one. And so because nature is not God, or we don't have nymphs or dryads or spiritual beings existing within different parts of creation, we can study nature without offending the gods, without crossing into something that we shouldn't do. Christianity posits that God transcends his creation and is distinct from it. This doesn't mean he has nothing to do with it. He upholds it actively. It doesn't mean he doesn't have any rules for how we should treat it. He does, but creation is not divine, and it is therefore something that can be studied through experiments without risking the offense of the supernatural. Fourth, nature, as created by a rational God, a reasonable God, is ordered and knowable. It's rational. Nancy Pearcey and Charles Thaxton write this about it: to become an object of study, the world must be regarded as a place where events occur in a reliable, predictable fashion. The world is ordered it's knowable. A universe with many gods or a universe that is the result of chaotic time and chance and infinite amount of time cannot produce a world with ordered intelligibility. That is a giant leap of faith that modern atheism takes, or modern naturalism takes. But Christians say that nature was created by a rational God, therefore it's rational. He ordered it, he designed it. You see in the 6 days of creation that God is dividing things and he's providing order to it. And then we have that in our scientific studies as well. When we study biology or nature, we see the order in the design of universe. And that points to an ordered creator. A designer provides that design. Fifth, it's not good enough just to have an ordered and knowable universe. Humans themselves have to be rational. That is, that they can rightly know creation. And then they need to be inquisitive in being able to know things rightly. It's not good enough that the world is knowable. There has to be someone or something that is actually able to know things. While scientism cannot explain why humans can truly know anything, Christianity begins with a very high view of man. Man is made in the image of God. We are like God. God gives us a job to do, to rule over his creation in his stead. Man can rightly know the universe that exists external to him. So as creation is objective and humans are like God, humans can rightly know things in God's world. God is the creator who commissioned humans with a job to do, to rule over his creation with the potential to be like God in lots of ways. And part of that is that we are sub-creators. We take what God has made and we make stuff out of what God created out of nothing. So humans are rational beings with the ability to rightly know things. Again, if Darwinism is right and we just evolved our senses and our senses only evolved to help us survive, not to give us truth, then we can't know that anything is true. But if you're created in the image of God, and he's the fountain of knowledge, and he's the fountain of reason, then you, who are like God, but not God yourself, but you who are like God, can rightly know things. Sixth, and finally, we should study nature. Christianity provides this foundation that humans should study nature. In the cultural mandate of Genesis 1:28 through 30, God gives humanity a job to do, to fill the earth, multiply and fill the earth, to subdue it, and to exercise dominion, to have rule over the created order. And that job includes building cultures, it includes politics, it includes having families, it includes church, it also includes science. Now, of course, this gets infinitely more difficult after the fall because all of man is impacted the fall, but people do science because that is part of what it means to be human. We should study nature because God created nature. He planted us into nature so that we might rule over it, that we might bring out of it its raw potential. And so science for the Christian has 2 primary purposes. And again, Piercy and Thaxton get at it here. They say, for the early scientists, the goal of science was the glory of God and the benefit of mankind. You should hear there an echo of the 2 great commands. Love God, love neighbors. Why do we do science? We study science, we see the glory of God, and we grow in our love for him. And we study science to help our neighbor, to overcome illnesses, to overcome the impact of the fall to an extent. Sin or science should reveal the glory of God in creation, and it should benefit our neighbors. Love God, love others. The cultural commandment and the 2 great commandments go together to direct us that we should be studying nature to the glory of God and for the good of others. So in short, science came in a specific time in a specific culture, and none of this is accident. Christianity provided the necessary foundation and framework so that science would happen. To put it succinctly, science needs Christianity. Science needs the Christian worldview. Again, Paul Davies. So science can proceed only if the scientist adopts an essential theological worldview. Many of our naturalistic scientists are coming to conclusions that undermine their very discipline. And so when they're conducting their scientific studies, they're assuming a theological worldview. They're assuming that there is a God, a creator, a designer. Or as Dawkins put it, it appears as if it appears that there's order and design, but we know better than that. Well, if there is no order and design, your science is worthless. It's just made up cultural games trying to establish power. It's not actual truth finding of the natural world. And so the Christian foundations of science are clear. There's a reason why it came in the Christian West. And there's a reason why that we're starting to see it erode in the West as we have abandoned God. Now people are saying that science is just a power game. It's a cultural construct meant to keep people down. It's not actually true. Well, if you don't believe truth exists, science is impossible. You need to have a foundation for knowledge. You need to have a foundation for all of these things. The Christian worldview alone provides that foundation. So I encourage you to comment, like, share, subscribe to this channel as we continue to unpack the Christian worldview and apply it to all of life 1 minute at a time.